What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the Acura Audio Garage. Today I'm going to reintroduce you to the DIY Pro Series with our 2004 Acura TSX. The point of the DIY Pro Series is to get you the most information to help you reach a decision in the least amount of time. So today we're going to go over the factory sound system in your TSX and what upgrade options are available for your Acura. Stick around to the end for a funny story about the car and some testing we're going to do on the tweeters and our rear speakers. Start with the easiest thing to replace or upgrade in your TSX's audio system, and this is going to apply for TSXs from 2004 to 2008. So in the front you have a 1/2 inch tweeter. Looks just like this. There is a cover here. I'll show it to you on the other side. So that little cover right there will pop off, revealing that tweeter, proprietary connector that you can use to disconnect it. This car has a total of 8 speakers. So you have the tweeter, your mid-range in this door, then you have your mid-range in this door, and then you have your 6x9. So in the rear you have some 6x9s. Here you can see what that 6x9 looks like, and this cover is pretty easy to come off. You don't have to take the rear deck off to pop them off. That's what it looks like with the cover on. Mid-ranges look like this. So there's a big debate always if these are 6.5s, 5.25. I can tell you 5.25 fit in the door no problem. If you want 6.5s, you're going to have to use some kind of adapter or spacer. If you want to do things the right way, this has a proprietary Honda connector for the speaker harness. So you're going to need that. Otherwise, you can cut the wire and MacGyver something together. And for the spacer, you're going to need something about that thick. If you don't want to use a spacer or just going to cut the door or whatever, feel free. Just know installing your speakers can be a challenge. We'll have a video coming up for that later on. In terms of power, I don't have any official power ratings for you, but most Acura Honda speakers are right between 15 and 20 watts. And this is the actual speakers from the TSX. So you can see this thing has deteriorated from just use, and then it actually slides in and clips on. So it has one of the tabs broken, but this is what the speakers in your TSX look like. And if you're wondering exactly how big they are, here's a Pioneer 6.5. So this is a 1680F, and when I lay it over, I would say the cone area is almost extremely the cone area is pretty much the same. It's just the actual mounting mechanism that might be bigger or smaller. When you go to upgrade the speakers, you actually have a lot of room in this boot here to run wire into and out of the door. So let me get a light. Unlike other Acuras where there's a connector here or a connector here, there's actually wire on both sides. The connectors are further inside, so you can run new wire into the door or out of the door without much of a problem. And that's the same for here, and then also in the back you can obviously run new wire. So if you're going to build a crazy system and you're going to run 200 watts of power in each door, then definitely run new wire. If you're thinking about doing a modest system, 80 to 100 watts, 60 to 80 watts, let's call it, you can use the factory power lines. There's no problem with that. All right, so powering all those speakers is your factory amplifier. Your factory amplifier is actually right below the factory radio. It's down there. It's kind of hard to see. It's dirty. But that's where the amplifier is. The connections are in the back. So that factory amplifier has 2 connectors, the inputs and the outputs, and it's actually made by Pioneer, in case you were wondering. Again, I don't have the overall power ratings for this amp. I want to say it's doing maybe 20 watts to each channel, and the fronts are together and maybe the rears are together. I don't really know. It's all speculation. If you want to integrate a new amp instead of this one, we have the amp bypass or integration kit available. If you want to use one of our plug and play amps to replace this amp, we have those available as well. And if you are thinking about keeping the factory radio and bypassing the amplifier, you're not going to be able to. The factory radio only puts out a low level signal from the radio to the amplifier. So you're going to need a different amplifier. Plan to keep the factory radio. If you are going to use an aftermarket radio, then you can definitely bypass the factory amplifier. It's up to you. A special note about this amplifier is it does protect your tweeters. So your tweeters in your TSX have a separate line running from this amplifier to the tweeter compared to the one to the door. So they are two separate lines, and the rears are that way as well. So this amplifier is crossing over your rears for subwoofer output and your front tweeters for tweeter output. So just keep that in mind. If you do plan to bypass it, you are going to protect your tweeters. You're going to need to protect your tweeters somehow. If you do plan to install a new radio in your TSX, you're going to need a radio that is all inclusive like the factory. So the factory has the climate control and the radio integrated. When you go to install a new radio, you're going to need something that can do both. So Metro makes a dash kit that has the actual radio container and then your climate controls. That is one option. You have the option of keeping this all intact, and there's a dash kit on eBay currently that fits right there in that pocket. So this is how it looks. We don't have it fully mounted yet, so there is some play on it. It looks pretty good. It matches the factory trim. So you either have to replace this entire unit or put a radio below it. So those are kind of your options. So the options were replacing your factory radio. There is a like Android Tesla screen out there that basically takes care of this entire thing and doesn't look like this. They're hit and miss. Some of them are really good, some of them aren't so good. So like from the feedback we have seen, people really love them or they hate them. There's no in between. So just be prepared that if you're gonna go that way, you might deal with some hiccups here or there, and just be prepared to overcome them. But if you don't want that, then you can go with the traditional double DIN install that Metro has, or if you don't want that, then you can do the radio below the main radio. You might be asking yourself, is there a way? So you might be asking yourself, is there a way that I could keep the factory climate control and cut this up and fit a radio here? Or if I have the navigation, could I put a screen there? That's definitely a possibility. It's a custom project you would have to like tackle on your own. There isn't anything that's like plug and play available for that. It's a project you can tackle and see if you can handle on your own. If you do want to take the navigation screen and put a different screen there, it's been done, it's possible. It's just, again, something that you would have to handle on your own. All right, if you're set on using the factory radio, I totally understand. If you have an older TSX, so from 04 to 05 like this one, you're not going to have an aux input, so you're going to want to pick something up like this from Amazon, eBay, whatever. They're just an aux adapter, and they plug into the port on the bottom of the radio and allow you to give aux USB. USA Spec makes real nice ones that integrate with your car real well, but if you just want someplace to plug in an aux, that more than will do the job. In your newer TSX, you will have an aux port in the center console, so look for it. They sometimes do go bad, but most of the times, as long as someone hasn't messed with it real thoroughly, you should be able to get away to use that for music. If that's not enough and you want some Bluetooth streaming, Bluetooth calling, then look at the USA Spec. These did come with hands-free link, so you could pair a Bluetooth phone for audio calling only to the car. The hands-free link unit is up here, and you would control it with the steering wheel control buttons and your voice. Hands-free link tends to be more of a headache in the older Acuras than a benefit. Sometimes it drains the battery, sometimes it malfunctions, it just doesn't work. So those are kind of some of the options you have for just adding aux or Bluetooth if you want to keep the factory radio. From the factory though, this system was kind of impressive in 2004. I mean, you had a full-fledged CD player. Unlike the TL with a CD player and cassette player, the cassette player here was optional. You could get a cassette player that would go right here, or a DVD player with a rear entertainment screen, believe it or not. Those were all factory upgrade options available for the TSX. You also had your 6 CD changer in the front, built right into the radio. So that was big back in the day. You know, CDs were a huge thing. Along with those audio features, if you had navigation, your navigation system for the time was a premier system. Obviously now looking back it looks silly, but they all worked off a DVD ROM drive that was in the trunk, DVD ROM drive that was hanging in the trunk. So this would be in the trunk up here hanging and have a bunch of wire harnesses going to it that basically will make converting your non-nav to nav almost impossible. There are harnesses and extra wires and different connectors throughout the car that report back to the DVD-ROM. So if your car is non-nav and you want to make it nav, it's more headache than it's worth. It is possible, but it is a big headache. I don't recommend doing that project. Also, when they revamped the TSX in 06, they changed the connectors at the back of the DVD-ROM. So the 06 to 08 can accept a backup camera. The 04 to 05 does not. I don't know if they're fully interchangeable. The connectors are the same. Obviously, there's going to be an extra connector on the newer one. Are the same. They should plug just right in. I just haven't been able to test it to verify that it would work. A question I'm going to answer off the bat, because I know some people are going to ask right away, is I don't want the entire navigation system. I just want the screen and the sub display. If you don't care about that screen being completely black, you can just run that screen. Your car won't have navigation. You can plug that screen in, make a harness to run from that screen to the sub display, and the sub display will work. It'll show the temperature and the time without having the rest of the navigation system. There's also a way you could feed video into that navigation screen with like a RGBS converter. You could hack that together if you really need it and send a composite video. But I know that question pops up a ton, so that's your answer. Yes, you can do it. Yes, it will work. It's just a matter of you coming up with that harness and wiring it all together. All right, if you're fully happy with the audio system in your TSX, you know, the person who had your TSX before kept it in, you know, didn't abuse it, let's say that. And you're happy with the factory system, you just want a little bit more bass. Adding subwoofers to your TSX is pretty simple. You can grab the signal right from the rear speakers. It's not the best signal. We'll look at that a little later, but it will do. If you're looking for the best signal, you want to go right behind the radio before the wires hit the amp and grab this full range signal there. But adding subs is pretty easy. Getting the power wire from the battery to the back. There's a good spot right in that corner, and you can run your power wire through an existing grommet or drill a new hole. Then you're going to go straight back to your amp. There's good grounding right around the rear quarter panels, and then when you need your amp to turn on and off, you can just use a fuse tap and just fuse tap the passenger fuse box that's right up here. So installing subs, you just want more bass, pretty simple. So overall, the sound system in your TSX from the factory, isn't terrible, but it could use some upgrades. That radio definitely, in today's day and age, you definitely at least want Bluetooth. So either USA spec adapter or one of those cheap ones from Amazon is a must. If you are looking, you know, you drive a lot, you're gonna want at least CarPlay. So I would go with either the radio down there, the Metra, or the Android radio. That's really up to you. For sound, it depends what you're listening to, but I would at least do the front speakers, maybe do the rear speakers, maybe do the plug and play amp. I mean, that's really all personal choice. It's really when something's broken that, like, you obviously have to replace it immediately, but I wouldn't settle for an FM transmitter in this car. I would definitely at least get an aux, listen to your own music properly instead of trying to max out the volume because the FM transmitter doesn't get loud enough. If you're watching this video trying to figure out if your system's faulty in some way, I will let you know that the factory amplifier in these does fail. It is quite common. The radio fails also, but it's not as common as the amplifier. And then your speakers like to deteriorate. So if the person before you was abusing your car or really liked music, it's very safe to say that your speakers probably look like this. This is just not physical damage, but someone just having the bass on +6 or at max and just blasting the speaker. Eventually from age, it's just going to wear down. And you can see it's starting to happen to this one where the glue has come off and it's starting to rip. So if your speakers do that noise when it's playing bass, it's time to replace them. Since these come with all 4-ohm speakers, any 4-ohm speakers will do. The Pioneers are a great choice. The Kickers are a great choice. If you want a little bit more output from the factory amplifier, you can use the JBLs. If you're a real sound quality guy, you can look at the Infinities. Okay, before I wrap the video up, let me just show you the outputs of those factory components, and then let me tell you a story about how we got this car. And man, the thing was, oh man, give me a second, let me get myself together. All right, guys, just some background. We're playing Pink Noise 0 dB, so it's just noise on all frequencies. And you can see we do have some sort of crossover. So we're hooked up to the front speakers, to our RTA, and here in the front, you can see. So if we had a full range of sound, all these bars would come up. Here you can see the frequencies are very little, but you can see right around 3.5K is where the crossover is. And as I get louder, you can see the other frequencies come in. But yes, there is a crossover from the amp to your tweeter. So when you replace your amp, you're gonna wanna make sure you protect your tweeter. All right, have my RTA now hooked up to the rear speaker. The rear speaker is crossed over low. Looks like around 300 hertz. So it's not a bad signal for bass. We'll compare it to the full range signal when we do the speaker install. But here's what that looks like. So you can see those bass frequencies from like 100 hertz. So if this was full range, you would see the bars all across. Since it's only a sub, it plays those lower frequencies. Your sub's really supposed to play from like 125 hertz down. So this signal is good for subs. It does have a lot of boost here, so you're going to want to flatten that out. You're going to want some sort of bass processor to make sure you get nice equal bass, or maybe you like the way that sounds, so you really don't need to do much. That's going to do it for the video. We covered the factory sound system in your TSX. I showed you the output of the tweeters and the rear speakers. We'll do the door speakers when we swap the door speakers. If you're looking for any of the products to upgrade the audio system in your Acura TSX, visit AcuraAudioGarage.com. All the products are there. Speaker harnesses, speakers, speaker packages, speaker spacers, the amplifier bypass, and we're also going to be launching the radio replacement kit. So all that stuff will be there. What I want to talk to you about now, because you're sticking around, is the crazy stuff that we found in this car, man. Okay, so person we bought this car from, I think, was in high school going into college. This car is up in all kinds of ways. Cut springs in the front, leaks oil, power steering doesn't work. So you steering hard body. You gotta have the muscles to turn the wheel on this car. But the worst thing we found was a baby diaper full of shit in this spare tire. So this spare tire was like this. We cleaned it out, by the way, but what we believe happened is two things. One, they changed their baby, whatever, put the diaper in here, whatever, you know, sometimes you can't throw it out, is what it is. But the second thing, this spare tire, my one of the people who works there, his name's Ever, he said, like, I'm like, yo, we're gonna clean that car, can you start in the trunk? So I'm doing the front, he's doing the back. I wish I would have caught this on the cameras that we have here. I probably did, I just don't remember the date. He was like, hey, yo, what the? This whole thing was full of dried up shit. So someone had to have come, sat like this or in this fashion, and just took a shit and let it go all to that spare tire. And it was dried up. It still stunk, but it was dried up. It had to have been there at least a couple months, I would say. I'm sorry for my language. We power washed this entire thing, and it was disgusting, man. But when you need a cheap car, this is what you get, man. It is what it is. This car cost, I think, all said and done, $1,500 to get it here. Again, the whole reason it's so cheap, the training's messed up, it leaks oil, power steering doesn't work, the bumper was obviously crashed, and they just tried to fix it with some super glue or whatever. So, you know, it needs its work, but for our purposes, it will work. And the purpose of the DIY Pro Series was to get people to become members, to answer their personal questions, provide more benefits to them, in exchange, do some fundraising to buy better cars. But that was like one of the biggest failures we've had so far. Not one person joined. But hey, you know, we still kept it rolling. We still find our opportunities. You gotta keep moving. It's life. So that's the purpose of the DIY Pro Series, was so that we could gather more funds to invest into cars, so that we can buy cars to do videos on, so we can show you how stuff gets done. It's also obviously to provide you the benefit of the most information that you could possibly need to make a decision to buy or not buy something, fix or not fix, upgrade or not upgrade. But yeah, who, like, I guess like that's like a high school thing. Like in high school you're messing around, you don't really care. But to take a shit in the rear spare like, what if you needed that tire? What if you needed it? I don't know, man. But alright guys, I appreciate it if you made it this long in the video. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe. This was the first video of the DIY Pro Series. There's still a bunch more coming, so you want to be subscribed, be notified. I'm gonna say we're gonna drop a video a week. I don't know the exact day yet. I'm aiming for Wednesdays, but that can change with, you know, how busy we are or not. So I appreciate you guys for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, share the video with somebody.